right, we are at Planning and Zoning, September 17th at 7 p.m. And we will start with a roll call, actually it's 7:03 p.m. We will start with roll call, if everybody could just start down there.
Brandon Cooper.
Terry O'Connor.
Mayor Southern.
Councilperson Grant.
Kaylee Brown.
Eric Fisher.
All right. We will start our conditional use hearing. This is for 5100 Cleveland Avenue. And this is for Eastern Healthcare Agency. And I'm going to turn it over to Eric to tell us exactly what we're here for.
No problem, Mayor. This evening we are here to review the conditional use hearing. As you know, we changed our zoning code a little ways back. I had the pleasure of meeting with the applicant and her agent about a month ago to go over stuff and went over the requirements. They are what I would call specific to our code, healthcare adjacent. Our code is very specific in calling out doctor's offices and dentist offices, and since they're not named specifically as a healthcare agency, we have to bring them through the conditional use hearing. And so I will be happy to start staff's presentation, and then I'll turn it over to the applicant to talk about their stuff, and we'll all be here for questions, obviously, and any discussion. Let me bring up the, I'm just going to give you guys an overview here. All right. So, interestingly enough, 5100 Cleveland is right here on the map. It is one of our most southern commercial district former houses. The boundary of the village is right here, as you can see, in Cleveland. The applicant is proposing to utilize the house for her home health care agency, and as you can tell, there's already a home health care service right next to her, so it was already in existence prior to our code change, so they're legal non-conforming at this time, unless they change something. The applicant is, at this time, proposing to go ahead, and if I'm lucky, I already had it up, but I may not, I do not. I will bring up her application. She's proposing to go ahead and obviously have her offices in there. There's going to be some paving in the back, and similar to what you see on this property, this is our alleyway, by the way, right here. This serves the house right here off Maplewood, this one resident that's directly adjacent to them across the alley. She's also proposing to put in a parking lot in the rear, similar to this use right here. Staff doesn't see, since it's a healthcare related use, we don't see any particular issue with the request as proposed. She wants to pretty much do the same thing that her neighbor is doing to the south and bring her business here to the village. So I don't have anything else to add besides that. She's not making any changes to the structure. Unlike our last conditional use hearing, he was obviously making significant constructional changes both to the structure, adding a parking lot and a garage. None of this is being proposed, so her use would remain interior to the existing footprint of the house, which has been used for an office, a dentist, a doctor's office, or an insurance agency for a long period of time. So that's all I have, and I can take any questions and happy to turn it over to the applicant.
I looked at the auditor's page,
Right.
and it gave like it gave a different outline of the property, so it confused me as to what.
I understand. I got a survey for you.
Okay.
Whatever questions you may have.
Yeah, because I saw this and then I looked up the auditor's page and I'm like, why did it had it at like a diagonal?
Well, let's look at that real quick, and then we can talk about anything odd. Obviously not the applicant's problem necessarily.
Right, but it's like
we'll figure it out. And so this is how the auditor's got a nice rectangle here. Let's get the.
okay, that wasn't even like what I looked
What
at.
you pulled up.
What? Yeah.
It's been under work, the auditor's webpage.
Oh, okay.
That you may have gotten there.
This makes sense to me then for you to put
Yeah.
a parking lot right there.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, wait, that doesn't work. It's not gonna go there.
Yeah, no, so this is, it's a nice rectangle. I'm glad that was brought up because the auditor's office has been going through their GX division, a lot of
Okay.
maintenance over the past month. You just caught them on a fun day.
Okay,
So-
yeah, because it looked like both those properties were like all like crossing,
It's a
so,
nice, yeah,
yeah,
it's a nice neat rectangle, so
okay.
it's a good thing. So that's what it looks like from there. You can see our right of way right to the rear of it as well. So that's what we're doing.
They can only give that one.
I'd like to speak to the,
Half of that.
Good evening, my name is Antoinette, I'm a nurse practitioner. Been working with the Eastern Healthcare Agency since 2018. I think I'll just let Steve talk, and then if there's any questions for me that I can answer.
Appreciate your time. We have been searching for a office to purchase in the northeast quadrant for about a year now. And we've been unsuccessful, which is good for the area, bad for Antoinette and Easton, but we have located this property at 5100 Cleveland that is in the geographic area that she'd like to be located and have her business run out of. There really is very little, if any, to be done to the exterior of the building. And not immediately, but down the road, like Mr. Phillips says, she would want to add additional parking when her business grows for employees, when she has larger meetings. Most of the employees are out in the field. So it really won't be an issue in regards to the current configuration with the blacktop parking. The building was built in 1962. It's 3,276 square feet. With the service for her company, I'm going to say you service all over Central Ohio.
Yes, we do.
And the reason she wants to stay in this location, this geographic area, is because you're currently located off of 161. So just to keep the continuity going for her business and clients and future clients, she does like the area. Minerva Park is a hidden gem, an enclave, surrounded by Columbus. So we were very tickled to have the opportunity to be located here with all the amenities that Minerva Park offers and all the surrounding restaurants, banks, and amenities such as that. Within 2 miles, there's 74,000 plus or minus residents here within Minerva Park. The home health care company, will provide job opportunities for the residents of Minerva Park and the surrounding Central Ohio, Northeast community. The clientele that they serve, hopefully there'll be some residents of Minerva Park that can age in place. I'm going through this myself with my elderly parents, and they're at home, and we do have home health care for them, and it is vital to ensuring the quality of life of the citizens and the residents of Minerva Park and all of Central Ohio. With the property being located between Maplewood Drive is where the alley we'd like to eventually build a parking lot. It's not immediate, is my understanding, Antoinette, but for future growth, she wants to have the ability to add a parking lot with the required setbacks and landscaping that will be necessary. We have reached out, I have reached out to 5 or 6 engineering firms to help us with the conceptual site plan, and in the past 2 weeks, not been successful in getting any engineers to return my phone call. She does have a conceptual drawing that a contractor has drawn up that is not what we will obviously build. It'll be more formal based on the zoning code and the setbacks and requirements that you have to access off the alley. The building between Maplewood Drive and the 2 properties to the south are commercial. The property to the north is, I believe, is residential. So, from the standpoint of it being a commercial property currently, we're not asking for any change from a residential use to a commercial use. We're just asking for the variance in regards to allowing the home care, healthcare agency to operate. The property is in good condition on the exterior. She does plan on making renovations to the interior. There's currently a salon, beauty salon, and a barber shop on the lower level, and then the second level she'll utilize as well for office. So she will be renovating the property to meet her specific needs. We do feel that it's a great location for her and Easton to be successful, and we ask for you to grant us the variance that we're requesting.
Appreciate it. Well, that is pretty much it, unless we've got any questions.
I'm just gonna ask random ones.
Yes, go ahead.
If we approve this, when we approve it, I don't wanna say it negatively, but, as long as they have the setbacks and as long, will they need to come back here to do the
No.
pavement, or as long as they are within the requirements,
The
would
use-
setbacks still be good?
So the use, the way that, we wrote the zoning code to have a little more control, for council's direction, was that they would come through and you have the ability to recommend, this body recommends up the chain to the council who has final approval. So you can recommend it be approved as they have applied, essentially, with no changes. You can recommend with changes, or you can recommend not to proceed forward with the conditional use, not to grant. In this case, I think it's pretty straightforward. They're not going to change the house. This one is bordered, unlike the other one bordered by a couple different residences, so you didn't want, you would be cognizant of the use that would, be operating beyond certain hours. You'd be cognizant of the use that would have certain noise or deliveries or anything like that. Even a restaurant you may want, but you may be concerned with how they mitigate themselves over time. This is essentially an internet, if you could tell them, how does your business run and what are the operating hours and things of that nature?
So it's Monday through Friday from 9 to 5:30.
Yeah. Any weekend activity or anything like that?
No, we don't have any weekend activity. Basically, our employees work in the homes. Early days in the week, they will turn in time sheets. And then maybe Friday pick up paychecks, but other than that, it's a maximum of 5 people in the office on a Monday through Friday.
How many employees total do you employ?
We have right now, how many? 70.
Right.
We have 70.
Spread between multiple locations, I assume, in the city or district?
Yeah, all over Columbus.
Okay. How many would, for the Northeast, how many do you anticipate operating out of this location?
Just 5 people. In the office.
But you support a certain number that come pick up paychecks. So the villages are interested in that
And
because,
it's typical Friday, because a lot of people do direct deposit, so not a whole lot of people come to the office.
sorry, not what I'm asking. Villages and cities collect their money from income taxes, so obviously
Okay.
locating your primary office here with a certain amount of employees is very interesting to the village. They want to see more employees, right? Especially if they're not all working out of the office, that's wonderful, right? So what they're asking, what I'm asking, which the council will be interested in as well, is how many employees do you support out of this location? Like you said,
70.
70, so there you go, that is significant, so.
Who will largely not even be there.
Right, that's a bonus, kind of like the other guy.
What is the income tax for the village?
It's 2%, so it's less than the city of Columbus, so you actually sit, your employees will be happy to save 0.5%, and then, again, I'm assuming this is since you support 70, there's a headquarter, that's what we call a net profits for the business, so that's very interesting to the village as well too. So, but again, you will save 0.5% just by coming to the village, so congratulations. We're happy to see you.
Is that how that works, even though they're
It is.
remote traveling employees that don't work?
Typically speaking, they pay taxes where they work. How they divvy that up, or how they're required under the law, I'm not the accountant in this case, but
Yeah.
that would be for them to track individually, because there is a certain amount of days and a certain amount of hours and things like that. Nonetheless, the business net profits still come out of a singular location, which is very important. So we get that regardless of how they track their other employees.
Yeah.
So,
That would kind of be like the MI Homes thing, we did receive for like the contractors,
Correct.
the individual.
Correct.
So I don't know
That's a
if
certain
it's
amount of
similar to
days.
that or not.
What Tommy's asking is, how would that work for the employees? But if you've got an employee that works, maybe it works 3 days here, 4 days here, they
Right.
still gonna pay taxes out here, but if they work 2 months out of the city of Columbus, I believe they're gonna have to pay some income tax in
Right.
Columbus, but that's what her account's for.
Yeah, that's a large mess of, I don't wanna deal with that. But yeah, no, that was my question.
So,
I feel like this is similar to, again, what's there. I'm very familiar with that building. My parents lived right across, like literally 2 seconds from there. So I pass your guys' property 100 times a week. So I'm very familiar with the property. I don't see any issues whatsoever. You wouldn't even be able to see that. You can't see those back parking lots from Cleveland Avenue.
Yeah, that's the only thing that gives me any pause is the fact that it's
Yes.
a parking lot in the back of that building. It neighbors that one house. Obviously, you guys already mentioned that, and it gives me pause to say, hey, I'd really love to hear what they have to say. If there's a parking lot in their backyard, would they want screening? Is there, and I'm not a zoning writer of things, but is there rope?
you can, in your recommendation, council will be the ones that require,
Yeah.
you can recommend some additional screening to work with staff, and we'll be happy to work with them. Council we'll talk a little bit more about that when you'll be back at that point, but, there's nothing wrong with asking for some additional screening. Again, we weren't here to approve the one at 1592 where you've got asphalt right to asphalt.
Correct.
Which is not how we would want that design. We'd want a small apron that would come in there, and then you would bring the parking lot closer, and by the way, there's contractor sketch proposal, obviously leaves something to be desired, but it brings it away from the
residential to the
Right.
north,
So-
we're cognizant of that.
So there would be room, and well within your rights to recommend that would be screening. We could block that view from the alleyway, right? So there's just the apron entrance.
That's my only concern, because I want to think about people that live there, that if that's a bother to them.
The house directly to the east is currently for sale.
Okay.
I did drive by and then, right there, 25, that one right there, that's for sale. And then there is a house on the bend, right on the corner of the entry to the north, the White House, that both of those, that home is currently listed for sale as well.
Oh, so both of those neighbors are.
Both of those homes are currently for sale. I just drove by and saw the for sale signs in it, so, in regards to whatever notice you would need to give them or whoever purchases those homes, you would hope that whoever is representing them, or if they are unrepresented, would do the due diligence to see, hey, this was just filed for this building right next to me, that
Isn't there a partial fence down on
You're talking
the,
about,
like?
there is a white fence, you are correct.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's what I think where we're like kind of talking about is like still just some type
Some
of.
screening.
Some screening on those like, basically two sides. Really, because the other side's a business,
The
which
east
has a
side
parking
and
lot.
the north side to
Yeah.
that parking that she does plan on having the parking, to the south, which would be adjacent to this other commercial parking right
Yeah.
here, and then leave that green space and some green space and have the entry come in here, so.
This is irrelevant, and I'm just asking. Have you guys actually closed, you guys are in contract to purchase?
We are, and our contract is contingent on your approval.
On this, okay.
If you guys do not approve,
Okay.
we will, have to,
That's the way I
make
thought
that
that was.
decision to move
was.
on.
yeah,
Perfect, okay.
yeah, I had a conversation with Mr. Tucker prior to our meeting a month ago, and so
Okay.
that was, make sure he had some due diligence language.
Great job on your due diligence.
Yes.
Thank you.
That doesn't always happen.
You hear that? Because
Compliments are due.
we have been in second place on a couple of properties, so I want to make sure we cover all our bases here.
Well, we appreciate that, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
So at this stage, obviously you can make the motion to have one of those options, approve with some conditions. It sounds like you should be add on a few conditions concerning the parking, some screening, and work with staff. And I think by the time we get to council next month, we'll talk about it, but we should have something that's a little more detailed for where your parking will be and how it'll be situated, maybe with some proposed screening, and then that way council can see something that way.
Yeah, and it will be conceptual since she doesn't have the immediate timeline planned for doing that, but we understand, we want to be good neighbors.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably the only thing that I have to think about is just the screening as a whole. And I don't know how the other one is done, but it's like, I don't want, if there was a bad decision made at that time, I don't want to perpetuate.
No, I get you. You
that
don't want to hear
decision.
from that new owner,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
and for the future use, or, I don't know. I'd rather have it than
Going
not.
south of there,
Right.
so is access to that back parking lot, is it from Cleveland Avenue, or do they have to come on the?
They have access through both.
through both? Okay.
This one doesn't have enough space, his air conditioners are right here. So,
Because that's my only thing that gives me slight pause, is just that's a little extra traffic that could be coming in and out of here.
Right.
But it sounds like it's pretty much just employees, and that's if she, as the business grows, is that correct? Is what that would be for? It's not necessarily like, constant deliveries
No,
or something like
no.
that? It's
You wouldn't
very
have that.
minimal.
No.
Okay.
finding a vehicle left overnight, I mean, you know, it's gonna be something that has to meet, yeah, like I said, setbacks, we can condition it upon certain criteria regarding the screening,
Okay.
so.
I didn't even know that road existed.
It's not highly traveled. No.
You
All
guys- You guys don't have any trucks or anything, do you? Like, it's just all cars?
No semis.
I'm thinking, I just wanna make sure I'm
Large
asking
RVs.
questions out of the box, cause if all of a sudden I get, tanks rolling back there, rolling up the road, then we're gonna have
We
to.
also have control of
It's
our,
not looking good right now. We're gonna make
Yeah,
sure
it
it's
will
good.
definitely be an improvement from the current condition that it's in.
we have control of our alleyway, and
Yeah.
if there was ever an instance where you have some ginormous trucks, let's say she sold it, and you had some knucklehead bringing something big back.
Yeah.
We can put some restrictions on the alleyway,
Okay,
right, so.
fair enough.
All right, you guys are gonna have to walk with me through this, everybody,
Sure, yeah.
don't laugh, okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the 5100 Cleveland Avenue to, let's say the correct name and everything,
The conditional use.
the conditional use to a home healthcare. What did I say the name?
For Eastern Healthcare Agency,
For
Yeah,
Easton
Easton.
Healthcare Agency.
right.
With the recommendation of additional screening around the parking lot
And to work with staff on location.
and to work with staff on location of that additional screening.
I would second that.
Oh yeah, you got a second.
Do you wanna do a complete roll call or just all in favor?
Roll call.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I don't even have my list of everybody here.
Brandon?
Brandon, let's start with Brandon.
Approve? Is that what it's
Aye.
Aye.
Just aye. Terry.
Approve, aye.
Mayor Southern, aye. Councilperson Grant.
Aye.
I'm not voting.
She's not
You're not
voting.
I was like, wow, she's.
No, not you. I am
She's not voting
not.
no.
I have no say.
So that's it.
You do, I mean, I know that.
No,
you
I
just-
mean,
okay.
honestly, my only thing would be, I think home healthcare has a great potential upside. I mean, there is, the silver tsunami is here and it's coming, and there's not gonna be enough space in the senior housing facilities. We're gonna have to get creative, and I think,
The demographics.
It's a great
are there,
use.
exactly.
yeah.
Awesome, okay. So we're good on this, so now we recommend this up to council, and that is going to be on the 25th of September.
25th, that is correct. So we'll also have that hearing, you'll be second, there's another conditional use hearing at that time, but 7 o'clock is when that one will start as well. Perfect. We look forward to seeing you guys back then, and I'll get with you guys on some updates to the plan that we can get to council.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you very
so
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
See, it was easy, painless.
No, you're right. I wish every meeting I had was like this. Have a good evening.
Just always tell them, you guys should be like the Minerva Park.
We're only going to Minerva.
Is Hawthorne part of Minerva Park?
Yes,
Oh, because my kids were there.
Yes.
So I'm
Yeah.
very familiar, yeah.
Yes.
That's very cool.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, so next, we're gonna move to
Our discussion,
a discussion about something else.
about our Cleveland Avenue redevelopment discussion.
There you go, Cleveland Avenue redevelopment discussion.
So specifically, just in general, talking about, last time, I sent everyone a little bit of homework to read up on the Columbus Zone In, to kind of give everyone an idea of what they did, since they're our big surrounding, big brother, sister, however you look at that. Because there's these significant changes over the coming decade, 20 years, with the density. Obviously housing is a big deal, a lot of growing population, so there's a need for revitalizing the areas and rezoning and making it easier for people to do certain things. I think from our council's perspective, my take on it was, hey, we want to be prepared for redevelopment when it happens. We don't have very much to work with, but obviously we want to make the most of when that opportunity occurs. And so we talked briefly about, this particular block, to focus on, because you can see where we've had two examples now on the north and south end of Cleveland. And in both cases, neither one would make much sense, even if someone acquired all the properties. It would definitely be an impact to immediate residences right next door. And so keeping these on a smaller scale probably makes more sense over, the midterm especially, right? And same thing with the ones in the north. I think their uses are good. We don't anticipate people doing a large redevelopment given the space. You need to have a certain amount of ground to be able to do something big and dense. And in light of that, we want to go ahead and I'll bring up what we call the Urban General 1. This is the UGN 1. This is part of Columbus' zoning code. And so you can kind of get a view of what that is. Kind of brings to light. I know you guys have all those articles and everything I sent you, but getting down to the nitty gritty, these are the kind of developments all of us have seen as you've driven around different parts of the city. You've seen these kind of developments along campus, which is a bit denser than this, and it's getting that way. But also when we get to Franklinton, or we get to any of those other areas where you're seeing these kind of things pop up. Whitehall's doing this kind of thing, along their stretch of Broad Street there, and you'll see this continue on these major corridors. And to give you kind of some idea, this is Columbus's phase one of their mixed use districts in which they have different uses. Now, what's interesting in this, I was reviewing this today, is that as we go along Dublin Granville Road 161, this is actually this is a regional activity center, so it's even designated to be a bit more dense and active over time. They've identified it along that way, and the community activity centers can be equally busy. So, but I think for these areas in between, when we kind of look, we're looking down Cleveland, they haven't kind of quite got to that yet, but any of these areas start to get to Broad Street, you'll see it here, I think is more appropriate, where they're talking about Urban Center 1, and and 2 is not here, it's in a different part, more German villages, but same thing here, the Great Western Shopping Center, where when we get out here where the casino is, these are regional activity centers. So it's interesting to me that they've identified, the area up north here where where GFS moved to, and this is a regional activity center. The fact of the matter is that this whole area is owned by, a singular owner up there. There could come a time when those folks decide they're going to do something a bit more intense. That shopping center and everything, and they've gone through a lot of renditions over the years. I give them credit. They've done a lot of, renovations. They've kept it alive as it's gone up and down through the decades. When Northwood went downhill, and a lot of these places suffered, but there's been a revitalization in the area, and so they're well prepared to do something pretty dense. And Columbus has recognized that and put them under a more intense zoning, so that may one day happen. So part and parcel to that, I think, from my opinion, is that the Urban General 1 is the closest example as to what you may want to see, especially in that particular block. I think, when we're talking about the Urban General 2 gets more to these smaller buildings, but you can have some height to them. Maybe that's more appropriate to some of these north and south end stuff, but today let's focus a little bit on the Urban General 1 and kind of, how that looks. And, I keep in mind that, Columbus is, when they do this, they're saying we're lowering our parking requirements. I'm not a fan of what they're doing in different parts of the city, but they've got a big city to work with, right? We have to be concerned with how people access and how they will live or work or, shop, in what we've got. And I think any of this requires that when you build something like this, you have to have some lower levels, or you have to have some parking as part of this somehow, right? They have to have some type of garage, and we can get to some of those examples as we go into our discussion. There's, Polaris has got some, Easton's got some, where they've intermixed different garages. Some of these, when you get some dense urban environments like this, and Edwards Company built some stuff right across from campus, so that's a good example of where their buildings were. I think they sold them, but those were like 10 stories high apartments, and they've got garages built several levels deep, within the system. So you can do something not quite as dense, obviously, but you're still going to need your parking there somewhere. Street parking is not going to be sufficient, obviously.
Are they waiving parking ratios entirely, or are they just reducing them?
Well, it's a good question. I think the way they generally read out is that they are, usually you do it on a square foot basis, like for the retail, so-and-so for a grocery store, and so for the apartments. But I think they're definitely starting to, reduce, I think is the right term, reduce and in some cases waive, depending on what's around. Because campus has got a ton of parking built into the garages. What they did up there was that they put several different garage systems in place so that they didn't have to worry about that. And that was part of Campus Partners planning, and that was part of the public investment into those areas from an infrastructure standpoint, which allowed the developers to focus more on the density and getting the return on their investment. So, one thing I'll note in this, which is interesting, Columbus is a little strict about it, because I've been on some meetings with some clients. They want a lot of facade, meaning they want a lot of building. The building can be covered up to 80%, but the facade required is an interesting aspect of this, in which they want people to, if you've got, it kind of zones out. It's kind of interesting. We'll see how this has not been legally challenged, so I would just say I don't think it holds up under scrutiny, but Columbus does things their way until they are told otherwise. You can't write a code that allows the use and then through the reading of the text or formulaically zone it out, meaning, the perfect example along some of these corridors is gas stations are allowed. However, most of these, especially these users like Sheetz or any of these guys, they generally have a 6,000 to 8,000 square foot building, designed a certain way, obviously function for their model, so they can control people in and out, control product, handle people buying gas, yada yada, right? It's basically a rectangle with some, interior design. Well, according to this, they have to build a building that would be super long because they have to meet certain facade requirements along the parcel, which doesn't work for a gas station user. They can't have a giant L shape that goes around the corner, and then hide the gas on the back. So that's where, as an example, code can be a little bit of a problem in that example. And there's a few others, but what Columbus is trying to do is they're trying to say, hey, we want you to essentially take up the whole space. We want you to build these giant buildings with a lot of density. We want to encourage that. So that's what they've written into their code that they want to see. They want to see the length of the facade required within or abutting this facade zone. So up top here, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here.
Yeah, you're gonna have to educate me on what facade is.
The facade is the face of the building.
Okay.
Right, so they essentially want, as you can see the example, they want the building to take up on the corner here. You've got to have a building that takes up 70% of the front of the street. So you've got to have it basically take up most of that space.
As opposed to maybe being further back.
Correct.
That's the main.
Or have a smaller building.
Or smaller building.
They want these bigger buildings.
Okay.
So within these districts. So again, that's how Columbus has done it. You don't have to write it in such a formulaic manner. It breaks it down, in their code a little bit more detail. But what I would simply say is, definitively, we make it, as I've stated before, I envision this as a planned district, and then you can put some guiding text. At the end of the day, you don't want something that gets denied because it doesn't meet the formulas. At the end of the day, you want those texts as a guidance that, yeah, this is what the village wants. But at the end of the day, maybe a user comes in with a really good plan, and then that leaves it up to the P&Z and the council to evaluate that plan. And within a planned district, it's more of a contractual arrangement. It's very flexible between, essentially the village and the developer at that point. Gives you more leeway, so. But that's essentially, at the end of the day, this is what I think, if I'm using an example here from Columbus, since we've been talking about Columbus, this is, I see the closest thing is what you would want on a developable site, where we had redeveloped a couple of those retail centers as an example. Not too high, I mean, it's got 4 stories, so you're not going 12 stories or anything like that, it would be pretty big. So, but I think as you drive along these very busy corridors, one other aspect of it is these buildings that are about this size that are, up against the front, you've got a very wide street out there on Cleveland. And you kind of, it's right now, you've got 5 lanes, on the street, it's pretty big. I don't see a building of that height to be problematic from a view shed standpoint. It's not like a building interior to the residential, if you're talking about residential scale, it does not meet residential scale, it meets Cleveland Avenue scale, right? So, and that's where it belongs.
It's so weird though, but you have to think about like deliveries. Like, what if you're Yasmin and you're like, "Where's the semi truck go, bro?"
Well,
well, we just want people to walk to your store. Like, deliver the groceries though. They got to get them in the store.
Yeah, and that's, if you watch that, I mean, we see it constantly, the big semis and things like that.
right. So what I would tell you is that, again, when something like this happens, and let's say that this is developed, at some point in time, we control the alleyway here, right? It's our alleyway. And so you're gonna have to have something behind that structure anyways that fire trucks can access, right, for rescue purposes, and firefighting purposes, and some separation to the resident purposes. So you have to have full circulation, in my opinion here. The alley allows for that. You may widen it a teeny bit so that, and it may only be, at the end of the day, one way, but you will be able to get your delivery still in the rear. You could also, a big building like that, you can design with, the ability for them to pull in one way, back into a dock. There's a way to build that into the structure.
Yeah.
And they can get off the alleys. The alley's clear still, they're not blocking it, trying to put it back in there. There's different ways to make that work. That just comes down to a final design standpoint, There could be, from an interior standpoint, you may have a lot of these type of, you may have a lot of these retail centers here, in the front, and so there may be 10 shops, there, but you could, from an interior design standpoint, they generally have a central hallway that connects everything from an access. They can all go down to a single point where your delivery trucks pull into a couple docks so that people can deliver, and then people get their stuff in the central shared area interior to that structure that the public never sees, right? And so that's one design, that can be incorporated.
I feel like these are Polaris Parkway, or off of Lyra, where Condados is.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Like right there, that's what I feel like exactly what we're talking
You're
about.
correct.
I wish I lived above a condado.
Right?
Like, I'm gonna go grab some tacos.
So I feel like, it is definitely way more popular than it used to be, because at first I looked at those like, this is weird, like you have all of these random little shops, but I shouldn't say random, some of them are like really cute.
So this is a 3-story
There you
high one. This is nice. I have a couple clients in this on the retail side of things here. Doctor's offices are here in the front. So what they did, the Polaris folks built this building like this. But if I go back again just to show you one more time, sorry. They have an apartment in the back. And then the parking garage is the center point of all of this here. So they had a nice amount of space to work with, but they face Lyra with the retail, and at the corner, here's your apartments, and then everybody accesses the parking here. Trust me, it's a busy parking area in the front and around. They do have service parking.
And our footprint would really just be kind of more that,
Yes.
where the Condados and Social Kitchen, like just that area.
Correct.
So, and I think that's where, I think that's where the conflict comes, is like trying to figure out how we do this with parking. Because we have to have, our area, they're not gonna have the area for that big parking garage behind there.
No, they will not. You're going to have to
Yeah.
have it
an
Opinion
underground.
is gonna be.
Right, and
an
underground,
system.
if they're, which I know is more expensive, and,
When you do it,
But
that's why you allow density, and
Yeah.
that's why you would do things, you know, from a financing standpoint, you would tip this, you know, at some point, this is gonna be, you know, $100 million plus development, you know, and it's commercial, and gets built up real quick, and there's a way to make it worthwhile, so that the developer, you know, gets reimbursed for that essentially parking, and we can say, and you've been to Gahanna, Gahanna did something similar, we can jump over there real quick, with Stonebridge, in which the parking is underground. So that worked out, and they had some weirdness with their financing, so don't use that as a direct example. But on Mill Street, essentially what you would want to do is that you would, let's find the parking, it's right here. Oops. So you can see it, so here we have, you know, multi-level here, here's the
is that
parking
right by
garage.
Creekside?
Yep, this is
Okay.
Creekside, here's the parking garage, it's
Yeah.
down 2 levels. So you would do something like that, you know, along the stretch there, where then they would be able to access it. This is all public parking, by the way.
It's actually a really good example, that one right
This is-
there.
Right.
Yeah,
What's,
because you think parking garage, you're like, behemoth, I'm going to an
Yeah.
Ohio State game or a
It's
Purdue
really,
game. or-
it's a small
Yeah.
garage, right building essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, this allows for people to park, and it's not hard to get in or out of this garage. I'm sure several of you have been over here, I mean, I've been over
So
here.
that would fall under the urban general one of Columbus as an example, what they,
They would allow for that, I mean, that would be fine within their zoning. So, I mean, it's not, what they're doing in certain areas is they're waiving certain parking requirements because of the densities. Again, they're getting rid of things that are more formulaic, attuned to square footage of both residential, office, or say the retail, which all generally our code included has a little matrix and says how many parking places do you have per square foot. They're trying to encourage this and deal with it in other ways. Again, going back to Canvas example where you've got a lot of different public parkers. Easton has several different public parkers.
Yeah.
That's a big retail super center, and that's a little different, but it's the same type of idea where you have essentially, you've got some on-street parking where available, but you can't have that many people in that area without having parking garages.
and I feel like for us, on-street parking is not, like, that's not gonna be there, so it's like,
It's not, I would say probably at some point here, I'll jump back to New York Park. Probably at some point, you're gonna have something, you know, from, depending on how they redesign the street. It's not necessarily within our call. We could say, we could add a row of, you know, front parking.
metered street.
Yeah, something like that. We can add it, we wouldn't do it right off we wouldn't do it on the right of way, because the right of way already exists and is a very distinctive point, but we could, you know, you're gonna have a sidewalk here anyways, but if you redevelop spaces here, you know, depending again how this is all situated, you see where this line is here, you could put, you know, imagine that this building comes up to about right here, and you could have pull-in parking, maybe, you know, but again, it all comes down to what the proposal and design are.
in all of our sections, like, each one of these, like that's like owned by one
Yeah,
person, and then that next section's like all one person, they're all like,
you got
the
one.
parcel, the large parcels are individually owned,
Right.
correct?
You got a family that owns this, you've got a gentleman that owns this, we talked to, you got 2 different owners here, and 1 owner here, and you got a house here, different owner. So, for this whole section, you got, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different owners. So, most of it being, you know, it's oddly enough, there's a lot of different parcels back from the day, but those will all be, you know, if we did it all together, it would be one parcel, you know.
Can I ask a question about the required parking?
Yes.
So I'm thinking, it looks like for these, especially these parcels here, is like, is it more likely that we would have a bigger developer who's doing a bigger
Right.
process? And so,
We
I guess,
could,
okay,
no, I'm sorry, we couldn't build these today.
yeah.
Right,
Yes.
you couldn't build it today with the restrictions, because the code at the time, these were built 60s, 70s timeframe, wouldn't meet the code as it's written now,
Yeah.
right? There's not enough space, which is part of the reason we have some circulation issues and kind of a hot mess issue here, because there's not enough. But again, you wouldn't have it, I don't know what you would have here if we, you know, without doing what we're doing.
Change it.
Right, you have to have some type of parking waiver to do any type of retail center here.
Well, I guess what I was curious about was like any large developer who's gonna build this, like, they're obviously gonna be thinking about parking too, right?
Well, they do,
Because they would want people coming
Right.
to park somewhere. So what is the likelihood of like them not wanting to do as much parking as we would? Does
well,
that,
this is where it comes back to how we work with them toward getting that done, right? So we need parking, they need parking, to have retail, you have to have something, in order to accommodate a multi-level development, you have to, right? They're cognizant of that too, to incentivize them again, especially when we're talking about, because a lot of guys like to build, on lots, right? So where we could build a giant eagle, we've got a big giant parking field, right? It's much easier and cheaper to do it that way.
but I don't think we want that either.
No, you couldn't do that here. That's also the thing. So you're going to have to incentivize them, and that's what we did back to the public forms of financing and incentivizing, where we're talking about a TIF district as an example. That's, again, the most straightforward way to handle this, I think, but we'd be up for different, opinions when we get to it one day.
Because I guess in my thinking, we only have so much space, so any space that's used for parking, it's a big deal because we need people to be able to park, but also that's less space to be an office, to be whatever.
Right.
Which is obviously where the height comes in.
Right. And it's where the parking gets put underground, like in Hanover, because that's not retail space, that's not office space. People don't want to be underground except to park their vehicles,
Yes.
right? So.
No one's got to have parking.
So, I mean, we'd have to be pretty creative. That's a very long, skinny, kind
It
of
is.
bowling alley parcel if you assemble just the frontage along Cleveland.
Right.
What's to say a developer wouldn't want to go another set of parcels and try to acquire all those residential
Well,
houses to the rear?
that gets trickier. We're sticking to what we've got. It is possible a developer could come in and do that. We'd have to have a large discussion with how that gets accomplished, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, the village would have to be, for that type of development. It's in my opinion, it's neither here nor there. There's pros and cons of doing something like that, right? You're definitely gonna have unhappy neighbors along this street on the other side to have,
Right.
suddenly have their view shed change significantly. But at the same time, any large-scale, dense development along Cleveland's still gonna not thrill people to death who are up against it one way or the other. You could say, hey, if that were to occur, then, maybe, the development, goes back to a certain point, like let's say, right, kind of maybe halfway point, and we find a way to, mitigate, you can only mitigate so much, but definitely some bigger oaks or something planted here, or some type of combination of heavy tree plantings will eventually grow and help with the view shed from people's front lawns, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, from their front porches. It's not, there's no winner here in regards to making people right, or feel better 100%, but it's not the first time a municipality or a village or anyone has struggled with this particular conversation, right? Because there's a desire from the greater good, hey, we want certain things here, right? We want certain tax revenues, we want the ability to have things in our backyard that we can access, from a retail, and something that's, that everybody wants to walk to partake in, whether it's restaurants or whether it's retail center or my doctor's office or my attorney's office is in there, how do we accomplish that, within part of the village and do it the way we want to do it, not necessarily the way Columbus wants to do it, right? Because there's a different way of doing it. That meets the village's needs. So there's always going to be some level of unhappiness, and that's just a conversation we have. The village gets to that point.
Yeah. It's,
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, just from a pure eye test, that the bowling alley strip along the north doesn't seem as developable as what I typically see on a proposed site, like in my regular workplace. Like that is what I see where they
Right.
kind of eat an entire row of residential houses.
Right, it might be. I can't do that for sure. Each of these spots is, if we look at it real quick. Mary, did you have a question?
No, just like everything that's going on in Johnstown, to acquire 12 houses like that.
It's a lot of work.
I'm in one right now and we're almost 3 years in. So, and we have 2 properties that are in the middle that don't want to cooperate. So, you're talking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I'm just gonna say, you might have to wait till they die. Like, they don't have to sell, like you
Right.
can, I'm sure that at some point maybe there's a way to do something, but there's no amount, some people just aren't going to sell for $5 million, they don't care. It's not worth it to them, so, you know, I think, again, I agree with her, it's very thin, but a project like that to try to overtake, you know, I did not count 12 houses, I just used that number, I'm sure we
Yeah.
could count them, but, I mean, again, I'm in a 3-year project, it's not done, it's slated to be done in March of next year, and I'm not holding my breath, so.
Well, I think that's the thing about zone in Columbus as a whole. When I look at that, I go, okay, you know what, to me, this isn't about tomorrow or next year. This is 10, 20,
Yeah,
30 years from
absolutely.
now.
Correct.
How do you want this, and perhaps the same could be said with this, it could look the same for another 20 years,
Right.
but if we set it up for success to be able to,
Well, in fairness, the one that I'm in the middle of, they're not looking to build right now. They are looking to acquire the land. So even if this takes 3, 4, 5 years, they don't care because they are literally just buying it right now because it's Johnstown area. They're going to be,
Yeah.
and an investor's probably gonna sell it 3 times over again once they acquire it and they go through this headache, then they're gonna find an investor that wants to do what they wanna do with it.
this is like Monopoly and SimCity.
Yes, I agree.
So I use an example from my neck of the woods in New Albany. So this was an interesting project. The Steiner folks, who are the people that run Easton, they've been spreading out a little bit. And this is to give you, this is the first New Albany exit. Giant Eagle's over here. Those who've been in here, downtown New Albany, you know, and the schools are over in this area here. This, for years, because I moved up in here back in 2015 and I lived down the street from here. Now, this is in the city of New Albany, and this was zoned to be kind of office and kind of a mixed use type of area a little bit. There were some big lots, was a single older house, it's still on the overhead, you can still see there are all these little houses that have been there again since the 60s, that go up along the road, and there was one other that owned this very big property in the back along the creek. Now, quietly, Steiner folks, because when I first moved up there, I saw several of these houses go up for sale. I'm like, oh, I wish I had the investment, and this is a great location to buy these and hold on to them. You know, these lots aren't exactly small, you can kind of see they're kind of like Jordan Road lots. You know, they go back a bit, you know, they're setting off the main road, but, you know, they're definitely, this area was eventually due for some type of reinvestment. Now, Steiner got in there and, you know, either made some of these people partners, or they could throw their ground in probably, or, you know, they just get nice passive income and they, you know, Steiner, you know, they got a percentage of equity, whatever it is. And Steiner, I'm sure the developers go in there and they have, you know, right of first refusal, you know, they've got all kinds of nifty things that they'll give someone 10 grand to give you a right of first refusal if they really want your ground. You just get to keep the 10 grand and you have to sell to them, if, you know, at some point if you want to sell, they get the chance to make the best offer. And so a lot of these guys deal with these things along those contractual arrangements. That takes years. This finally took 10 years, as the mayor was saying, so it took 10 years to finally get to the point, well, I should say 9, because they were in front of state, they had control of this whole thing, and they were in front of city council, and the neighbors were coming out of the woodwork furious about it, you know, they didn't really want to see this develop this way, because it was going to be generally a denser development, similar on a small scale to Easton, but more along that urban thing that we're looking at, the urban general guidelines item that Columbus is doing. So it's going to be like that. But what I find quite amusing, both as a planner and as a resident, people, my wife told them, complain about not having enough restaurants. Complain, what are you going to start? I mean, Steiner knows what they're doing. I mean, they know what they're doing. You're going to get dozens of restaurants. You're going to get places to shop. You're going to get offices.
Is this a why do I have to go to Easton or Polaris to go to a nice restaurant type of a thing?
Right. You
Yeah.
could walk down to it. People love their golf carts. They can drive
Right.
golf carts down to the thing.
But I think that ultimately boils down to just people, and I shouldn't say people don't like change, but, you know,
Yes.
you know, it's harder for some than others,
Right.
and
And
it's,
it was still in a good location. I did feel bad for one guy. Now, I always thought he owned this ground up to here, because he always kept it mowed and stuff. Oh no, they chopped this all down. It's all gone. So, you know, there's goods and bads. But it's gonna be, getting back to the mayor's point, it will take a long time. If they choose to buy residences, they have tools at their disposal. There's long-term planning that goes with it. They will hold it and eventually get to where they want to go, because it's a long-term play, right? And eventually people make their money that way. So,
Usually it's that person right in the middle that holds as long as they can, because that one's like, yeah,
So
you
yeah.
can have it, but it's gonna be triple.
Yeah.
I'm rolling with that.
but eventually somebody sells,
Yeah.
the kids definitely sell, I can tell you that, so, it eventually sells. So, they will work around and make that happen, if that's the case, but part of the idea here is that, again, you can get to some denser zoning, and we can make certain development groups aware that the village, is looking for someone to redevelop this, but, I mean, we can obviously offer certain incentives to make this happen, including our zoning. It's up to the developers to find their investors and go out and, put these things under contract. And they will when they see, the results or the long-term returns, so.
And I know from I grew up just south of Morse Road, when Morse Road wasn't developed, I remember it being Glicks, and I don't know what it is now. And it was, and then people build up there. The one thing that happens is, people complain about Cleveland Avenue Sound. If we build something a little higher on Cleveland Avenue, it will deaden the sound coming back.
It does?
Yes, it took us a little bit to get used to looking out our front door and looking at a building, but over time,
Right.
there
Yeah.
was a sound quality that did change.
Right.
That's a great point.
What
Can
does
we
a
get
building
a second
look
level
like?
on Yasmin and on the rehab facility, because
I mean, yeah, that's something that does hurt. The other question I have, so if we get businesses versus, if we think businesses, we're thinking mixed, maybe a business on the bottom,
Right,
housing on top.
maybe.
How do we, and even when we've been looking at these expansions of these other businesses, when a business comes in, do we get 100% of their RETA? Any
So-
employee, does it automatically come in?
Yes.
Or do those people
So-
have to, like us,
No.
apply?
So anyone who works on a daily basis in any of these businesses, let's say it's a doctor's office, those taxes come to the village.
Immediately,
Yeah.
not
It's-
later on
It's
filing.
in the code, I remember reading it, it's spelled out that the employer is responsible for
They
collecting that.
immediately take that out.
Tax,
It's-
correct,
Okay,
right.
okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because I know a lot of these businesses, they're gonna be, I might work there a month and I'm gonna be gone and
It's not the way, no.
Okay.
Anyone who's there has to pay, employees pay an income tax. Doctor's offices, it's nice that once you can have the office, there'll be I'm sure, a discussion when we talk about residences versus doctor's offices. Maybe you want a combination, I don't know, right? But definitely anything that's in those offices pays taxes. Anything in the retailer pays taxes, right? All that pays taxes to us. And that's the nice thing, much like the nice lady here tonight, that'll be a nice, since she's got 70 employees, her net profits, which is the headquarter business. A lot of these nationals that may come in, doctor's offices are different, but the nationals, the chains, their headquarters is not in Minerva Park, so you're just getting employees to pay, right? Which is okay, it's not ginormous. I mean, the Phantom Fireworks is an example, you're gonna get some revenue from that and other things, but the problem is it would be nicer if we had their headquarters located, that would be wonderful, right? Because you're getting net profits of all the money that comes in for the business itself beyond all those, every location's making $3 million a year. All that's funneled back through to the main headquarters. The gentleman that you saw, a month ago, he's got a nice business going. So you're gonna see a good amount of income stream from his business, which is wonderful, right? So those are the kind of employees, you really wanna see headquartered, mid-level employers come into the village. And doctor's offices are nice because you get those nice fat salaries, you get all the office workers, and generally speaking, those practices are set up that each one's kind of individual. So they do pay their net profits out of that location, except if it's OSU. But,
So we would like we definitely like the mixed use,
there we go.
But always businesses, for sure.
businesses and maybe the housing as well,
Yeah, housing that you get from the residents, but again, it's one of those things that, housing's a different discussion about how you have residents there, it's a different, it's a little bit different animal.
Transient.
It's not a bad thing, because people that can afford these kind of apartments, you don't have to pay for that, so you have a good income level that comes in with that. Anytime that you've got a denser development like this, it's brand new construction, you can't have mom and pop type stores, right? You've got to have someone who's got established ability to pay $50 a square foot from a rental standpoint on the ground level, you know, I'd say 30 and up for sure, but 50 is not gonna be out of bounds.
50 all in probably after
Yeah.
tax, because a
Right.
lot of those new leases are, you're paying taxes, insurance,
The density-
common area.
The density is nice because it will save you on your triple net. It's the higher up you go, the less you're gonna pay on the triple net, which
So
is good. Sorry.
playing game theory on this, right? They zoned Northland Plaza for probably major redevelopment. I would imagine their goal is for it to look more like Polaris and stuff at
Right.
those intersections. Similar to what they're doing where they're redeveloping all the old malls down in Cincinnati, right? These are massive mixed use,
Right,
100-acre sites where they're putting in hotels and multifamily and the offices and things like that.
right.
So I imagine a standpoint for this, best case scenario is a mixed use retail above office, which in today is not really feasible. Nobody's building brand new offices because you can buy them for pennies. But 15 years from now, that's probably going to be a different scenario.
Right.
Lots of home healthcare places, neat places to office.
Yeah, and
There's
medical
all kinds of-
office is definitely best.
The more the real estate costs in Columbus is when you start to see the justification for denser levels of buildings. Because there's no reason to do it when ground is a certain price point and, you know, construction is a certain price point. But now, as we know, construction costs, inflationary purposes, you know, everything we've seen since COVID has made things rather expensive to build. As you get into density, it saves the developer money, it makes more sense, you know, to be able to do that. So, you know, and it's one nice thing about this, the thinness here, you don't want too thick. Too thick makes it difficult to convert between office and residential. But when you're a certain
Your footprint.
thinness, yeah, your footprint's a certain way that you can convert back and forth, right? And they can plan for that now. I mean, you see buildings downtown are old, the smaller, not so ginormous buildings are easier to convert to residential, and that's what they've been doing. It gets trickier on the bigger footprint buildings, right, more
And that-
expensive.
That does seem like something we should really be aware of, is that whenever here, right, we want it to be able to serve multiple uses in the future.
Right.
Right, we don't want a big, wall, you know, some huge store, like you're saying.
Right. The developer it works, you know, investments, without getting too complicated, investors and investments run a certain time frame to how they do things. You know, they want to see a certain return over a certain period of time from rent, and then once they're successful and they've stabilized, everybody's rented out. A few years on, they'll sell it for a nice penny, and the next group comes in and kind of wants to repeat this a little bit, until some point in which, you know, we don't want to see a tank, but at some point, the market's changed and they'll have to convert and make other things happen. There has to be a different investment. Somebody eventually eats it. Somebody has to redo it, right? The world changes, but that can be 50-year life frame, right? So,
Is the best idea just to perhaps match what Columbus has done, or is it to?
not necessarily. I think the best thing to do is, you know, we hear what people want to see happen today. We want to make sure we're moving forward with full knowledge of what's going on around us, right? You can't be blind to what obviously Columbus is doing and the whole Franklin County and the Central Ohio region is growing, and, you know, we want to be able to be there, and I think several council members have expressed this as well. We want to be able to be we want to have something in place so that when someone comes knocking, we're ready to go. Nobody wants to be scrambling.
Correct.
So I think Columbus, as we talked about here, I think this is good guidance, right? I think it's good guidance.
Yeah.
You know, this particular model. And I think this is what we would like to see with some caveats. But again, I think you put this in a planned district, because at the end of the day, we don't know when someone's coming knocking, and it needs to be flexible, right? The council at the time, whenever somebody brings something forth, it could be 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're ready, you know, to say, yeah, we like the guidelines, but there may be something else going on in the world, there may be some other need, and there has to be a way for people to flex for that, for whatever's going on. So that's my recommendation. I think you can use this as a basis, right?
Yeah.
But without some of this, I don't think you need to put some of these shenanigans in here about
Sure.
Yeah.
facade.
Facade.
Well, no, there's
This is
some, and
extra
I'm
bonus
researching this stuff, people talking about form-based.
I know.
Is that a cool thing or not a cool thing?
Well, okay, I'll talk a little soapbox from my profession for many
Yeah.
years, right? So, what I found, all right, is that folks in my planning field, especially when they've been just doing planning for their entire lives, or they're working for someplace like Dublin or Columbus, you're making a lot of widgets, right?
Yeah.
You're in a hierarchy and you are, I'm looking at landscaping code, maybe you're a good, really good reload plans, I don't
Yeah.
know, right? But you can be pigeonholed as a planner in particular environments, right? And in some of these bigger environments, it's definitely what happens. So, I work for small municipalities because there's an ability to be, a little bit more nimble at times, you get to be more in the mix, you get better experience, and it was something I learned a long time ago when I started in Powell, when I finished my planning degree at OSU. And so I'm kind of stuck in that particular model. Folks, colleagues that have worked in Dublin or Columbus, even Westerville, some of these folks will be doing the same thing or something around there, and they'll be at this level, and some of them may never talk to a council, they may simply be preparing plans. Dublin's got a ton of planners, ton. And they work on all kinds of specialized things. And sometimes they go to their conferences and stuff, and sometimes what happens is they, like anything, you become super, I don't know, tunnel vision, perhaps not the best word, but you get super focused and don't necessarily see everything else around you, nor have you necessarily gotten to experience it, and you're making things for the sake of, you're planning for the sake of planning. I don't know how to describe it. And that happens in all professions. It can happen in any type of bureaucracy, right? And so I always have been a fan of trying to keep it simple, have guidelines, right? Because the code needs in the world change. And sometimes I think what I found is that you can't flex fast enough in certain situations. Government's not meant to flex, let's say, a private business that's focused on a specific model, right? I'm not here just pumping gas, or I'm not here just selling cell phones, right? Government has multiple functions, and it's to serve the public good at the end of the day. But part of that public good is being able to react in a positive manner to perhaps changing business and economic conditions, right? That's a little more tricky. I think we've got a lot of years of experience, in general now, and you've got good legal counsel, and there's good folks that, help guide you every day on this, I like to include myself on that list. But we want to set things in motion, or have something on the books that somebody can refer to. Like, when we were doing the zoning code change, we're like, oh, why is this in here? This is back from 1989, and they had taken it from someone else because they didn't have good guidance at the time, and they just slapped it in there, and it really didn't match what we had here in the village. It worked, it didn't work. We had to make a lot of amendments and addendums to different portions of the code, which gets messy over time, right? Because you're trying to take something that really wasn't designed for you, and force it to work. The square peg, round hole, and vice versa thing. So I think you have, again, within a planned district, you have the plan district text. You set it up that way so that you can have the guidelines. You can take guidelines here that you like better than others. We can pull some of Gahanna's code in if you would like, that. You can, pull some of Polaris's code in. You can look at it, and I think perhaps that's the next discussion. We've got perhaps a few more people here, and say, all right, I like this, I don't like this. Let's put all this together in a kind of a draft guidance form. So let's if this is the way I think we want to go, from what I'm hearing, then we can bring some other examples to the table and then put together your guidance, your text at that point. And I think
That's a great idea.
so. If everybody's good with that, that's what we're going to do for next time.
I think, looking at the Polaris ones, and again, I think the Gahanna and all that, if we look at some of their, and compare.
How do developers feel about planned districts versus,
Well, I think plan districts are
specific
better. I think they're better. Having worked in both sides of the fence, it's a plan district that's written properly. That's not. I don't like, from the private side, I don't like this, right? I don't like that they're extraordinarily strict. Like Columbus used to be, when you would go in, because they had a 50-year-old code from the 40s and 50s and 60-year-old code, they'd be all about some council variances. Yeah, we'll make this work, and they make it function. They adopted this, and they became very rigid in meetings suddenly, very rigid, because The first thing they didn't want to do, I'm sure, is they didn't want to go back and say, well, we need to adjust this, and they just spent millions of dollars on getting this developed, right? They're still in the process of putting out zoning, it's gonna be years, and there's gonna be, inevitably, someone's gonna get tired of this, and someone's gonna sue their butts in court, over that, but there's the developer's end of it. I think this gets a little, like I mentioned before, where you're allowing certain uses in the code, but then you don't allow them because of the design criteria. That is not legal, and that is problematic, and that someone's gonna take them to court over it. So, that'll come down the line. So, plan district allows for you, so you have these guidelines, and maybe something doesn't quite work for someone, oh, maybe the council loves it, maybe it's a great idea for the village. Well, you just you have a text that they submit with the proposal, and you adopt that within the plan district, and that's the plan district text. Yeah, it's all done at that point. It's flexible, and because that's the agreement between the village and the developer at that point. That's what makes it all come together. So and we already have some of that text on the books. Planned commercial district is in there, planned industrial district, and planned residential text is in there because that's what we use for MI. So all of that is in there. And there's nothing wrong with putting the guidance of what the village wants to see. You want to see a denser development, great. We'll say allows up to certain height, certain stories. We want to love to see complete coverage, parking underneath, and then when someone comes knocking, we talk about parking requirements and how we can incentivize them to build the parking, which will be a public parking garage at the end of the day.
Could we zone it to have Ohio's tallest skyscraper?
You could.
That sounds fun, I don't wanna do it,
But
Ask it where it's
engineering wise, this little space is not gonna support your ginormous skyscraper.
Are you sure we can't make that happen?
You can put up, look, anything, you can engineer all kinds of things, but you can go pretty high, but you have to work with certain structural restrictions, even those giant towers where they, are communications towers, well, you gotta have guide wire.
Yeah.
Those will go
Well, no,
thousands
because
of feet.
I lack the creative gene when it comes to visualizing what a good idea for this is. So I'm kind of dumb when it comes to it's just not my forte, and I'm okay with that. But then I'm like, oh, well, if New York can build buildings like that, somebody could make something creative out of something small. I don't know, it's really, this helps me.
Right.
I'm like, oh yeah, that
It's
looks
useful
fun.
to see things like this. This is a 3 to 4 story height building, and when you get over to Creekside, if you're on the other side, the back side is lower, where the creek is, and so it's clearly 4 because part of that's the back end of the garage. And they've got some event space on the back end too, I think. So, but, I think overall, aside from the shenanigans that happened with the way they did this back in the day, it turned out well. It's gone through itself. Creekside's been here for a number of years now. And it's gone through some renditions, some changes, which is normal in any particular economic cycle, So that's to be expected. The key is that, you want something adaptable, and I think you can get that.
Yeah, I think it's important to set the stage because of everything that's going on around us, and if we don't do anything, then we're missing an opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't worry as much about getting it perfect as I worry about just getting it done.
Our district gives us the flexibility that we don't have
Yeah.
to get it perfect initially.
Correct.
And then we can but.
And we're good at that.
I'm not getting it perfect initially.
Not throwing stones at myself, but I'm just saying, we might not be perfect, and we've learned that over the years.
Yeah, you want some ability to flex, because nothing's gonna be perfect.
But still trying to attract what we want it to be in
Correct.
our heads, even if we don't know totally what that is.
Well, I just love the idea of not thinking about the fact of some of the noise, being where I live and being where some of that is, I know it's not gonna be like a, complete surround sound, but come on,
It
10% is 10%.
It makes a
Do
little
you guys
bit
have
of
noise?
difference.
Maybe a little bit.
I hear ambulances and police all night, every night, 24/7.
Yeah.
I'm at Cleveland and 161, if you think about it, we don't have any tall buildings. North Plaza is not tall,
It's the same height as your house,
yeah,
practically.
everything is basically the same as my house.
When the
so that's-
leaves fall, I hear the train.
I hear trains all the time.
Yeah,
yeah.
That is its own thing too, yes,
and
training.
it depends on the time of year, how loud it is. It's gonna start getting louder soon, more easily.
Right.
Well, it's It's gonna get much louder when,
They won't leave us alone.
Fear Columbus opens.
Oh,
That's right.
And I'm
you
not,
really get that.
I do, but honestly, I'm not outside, I know it's,
I
I'm,
just,
Not even
even
outside.
over MI, we like hear it and it's like, talking, and then I'm like, oh no, it's like,
right,
it's a.
So we also live in a
Yeah.
city, you know?
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
There are.
I mean,
noises.
hey, it's something fun for people to do, I'm not complaining about it, but yes, you definitely hear it Friday, Saturday night, and it ends at midnight or whatever, so it's not bad.
I remember the spotlights when we first moved
Yeah.
here, we were like, what is that? And then we figured it out.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm sorry, just popping in here to see,
are you fun?
because the university district's done a few of these bigger buildings through here, so I
Oh,
just
yeah.
wanted to see a couple.
It's just amazing to see how great some of these look compared to what they used to.
Right.
I
It's like
mean,
you
you have
don't
to,
even recognize some of these streets when you like
No.
go down them
It's
anymore.
devoid of
When
all
you
the
were-
charm I
when you were
would.
talking
I know,
about
all the
Morse
dive
Road,
bars,
like, just the changes Morse Road has done over the course
The
of
dive bars were a
time.
little bit of a demilitarized when I went to college back in the early 90s. There were problems.
Oh, well, that's part of the charm.
Well, they led to some different type of
Who
charm.
likes a perfect person, you know? I like
Right.
somebody with a little bit of grit.
So I mean, here obviously, the university district matches what they've done on one side with the university and the facade on the other. But again, retail on the bottom, this is a bit higher, 4 stories is
There you go, you're getting your skyscraper.
And you got 6 stories on this structure. This was originally the Edwards building.
It's beautiful. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
I know, that's the worst part, we're like, okay, where do we sign?
Right,
Land values right there though are quite high compared to,
right.
but
Yeah, these are tall. So this gives you an idea as you go down.
Yeah.
But again, this is a 5-lane street, right now, the way High Street is designed, so you can kind of see how it looks. And they've got some on-street parking to boot.
Get up the best views in Northeast Columbus.
Right? I mean, imagine what that view would be like on that 3rd floor right down Cleveland Avenue. I'm just saying, I mean,
Nice view of the village then. Look out over.
So next meeting, Eric, you said get stuff from,
Yeah, well, let's give a few code examples, I'll send that around, obviously, before we have the meeting. We can pull from, let's pull Gahannas,
okay.
what they did right there in Creekside, I think that's a good example. We can pull the one at Polaris, and it's in the city of Columbus, how they did that, but I think they did a plan district. Polaris is kind of special though, so it'll be a good example, standpoint of, just kind of seeing what they did. We'll use those as examples, and, we can go from there, and then we can kind of, using Columbus that we showed today, there's that code. You can kind of put together, again, your guidelines for the plan district text that we'll insert there, and we'll go through that, and then we'll put together a journal for that. Easy peasy. And that'll be good, because I know, Council President wants something, he wants something back quicker than later.
yeah, I mean,
We'll get it to him.
I think with all the stuff going on 161, I think that is what makes some people, I don't wanna use the word nervous, but I'm gonna use the word nervous, making sure that we have something moving along, so.
We want to be competitive with that, we want somebody to look down at us.
It's interesting because this is the community, I mean, they've got community activity center, and then they've got their regional activity center, which is, again,
More dense, right?
it's very dense. If they ever redevelop it, that's a dense environment. You can see how tall that is. That's the university district style buildings that
Yeah.
they're looking at. So,
are you able to toggle to phase 2 that they have proposed that bleeds down Cleveland and?
well, I don't know if I didn't see it on their official maps yet, so I don't know if they released it.
I thought I was
You see here.
in one of the links.
Is that would also be something for us to consider as what they're wanting for Cleveland
Yeah,
Road
cause
in
they,
US.
yeah, phase 2 comes down both sides of Minerva.
I mean, obviously, we don't have to do the exact same thing they're doing, but
It
could
would
be
be,
logic in that.
Right, but
There's,
being night and day doesn't make sense either.
Yeah.
How old will I be in 2050?
Are you Googling that?
No, I'm thinking about it.
How old?
What year is it?
I don't
Should be
know.
25 years. from
25 years from now,
I
hang
know they
on.
have a,
They think Columbus population is going to be 3 million.
I have to do math.
I have to do it, how, what do you, I gotta like do math, well, you have
Right?
to bore.
Okay, wait, this is planning and zoning, this is not math class, so we're not doing that right now.
70%
I
of
think
my
I don't know that they've got it quite the way they've got phase 1, so I'll look. And if we can-
yeah, there's definitely an interactive map for phase 2. I'm just not sure where it is. I probably pulled it off a link from one of the articles you sent.
Okay, we'll find it. It's in this mess somewhere.
Yeah,
I have a question, I know there's gonna be like a survey that's going out
Yes.
from the village.
It is ready to go.
Is there any questions about what people want for like that area at all? Is that something we've like talked about? I don't know if we want that information or not, but.
We have talked in the past on some of our surveys about like where we currently shop. Do you remember any specific questions that are involved?
I think they're very generalized questions as a whole, not I don't remember specifically them. I don't think it focuses on that area, but it's like,
Because when I think about that, right, I feel like in my head, there's like kind of two main things that I would like to see, and I don't know which is more important, is like, if we get more businesses that bring income taxes, that makes us more
Sure.
economically strong, that's
Right.
a really good thing. Also, I live very close, if there's something I can use,
Yeah.
I would also like,
I totally
I
agree
hope
with
we
that.
can do both. you know?
Yeah.
That's the ideal world, that's, yeah.
So this isn't the time, Eric's looking at something, no, I'm saying, so we'll talk about what he's doing then. The way that we're doing the survey this time, again, it's ready to go, so expect some stuff very, very, very soon on that. But the way that we did it, I think, doing another survey 3 to 6 months from now is not out of line. I mean, it's something we could put together that is solely based on X. And then maybe doing, that might be something that Kathy and you guys would be on board with is, doing smaller surveys throughout, instead of doing one every 2 years or whatever they recommend, doing, potentially smaller individual based things like, if this one's gonna, maybe we take information from this and then we focus on something else because we realize there's something that we need to focus on or something.
Yeah.
So that might be, a smaller version survey, and, I mean, I think that would be a great idea.
Well,
Is that it on that? Okay, so I have randomly done, agenda, are we done with old
Yes.
business, new business? I don't even know if that's on the agenda, so, okay.
if somebody's got something here, it's open.
Okay, here's where I'm gonna ask a couple things. Just triple checking with you, maybe this is a Barb thing, maybe this is not. We have advertised for both hearings for the 25th, and it starts at 7 for
Correct.
council. This is not for this, but both were advertised.
Correct.
7 PM.
7
7 PM, yes.
We're not doing the 7:30.
No, we're not doing that, you guys are crazy. Next meeting, is it October 15th, October 22nd? Does anybody have a preference? Which one is it? I'm
I
gonna
have it
go,
on October 15th, that's the Wednesday.
perfect, Tanner's birthday is the 22nd, so that works for me.
15 sounds good.
That's it,
The 15th, everybody's good with the 15th at this point,
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
7 PM. Obviously, if there's a change or anything, let us know, but I will make sure that Barb gets that put on the calendar. And that works because our council meetings are the 2nd, the 9th, and the 23rd.
Right.
I
So,
won't know until I look at it.
I know.
But thank you for letting me know that.
so, we're good.
Alright.
That was all I wanted to make sure that we had our next meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Um,
All good, unless someone's got something else?
Motion adjourned?
so moved,
Yeah, second. Let's go.
seconded,
Stop.
third.
Thanks, Sonic.